Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black entrepreneur experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards. Our next guest is a licensed CPA and QuickBooks Top 100 Pro advisor, helping businesses take control of their finances. Welcome, Crystalynn Shelton.
Thank you so much. I am excited to be here today, Dr. Francis.
I've given our audience such a brief bio. Why don't you fill in the gaps and share with our audience what you'd like them to know about you and your business?
Okay. So I currently reside in Dallas, Texas. I am, a Texas girl, but I lived in California for about 25 years. So just recently came back home in 2020. And so I'm just super excited to be back home. I graduated from the University of Texas at Arlington with my accounting degree. And in 2010, I started my business. And so what I do is I provide consulting services to small business owners. Basically, I coach them on how to manage their business finances. And so there's just a lot of small business owners out there who don't feel comfortable or don't feel confident in the ability to manage their books. And so I actually do that on a daily basis, meet with business owners, help them gain that confidence, help them set up their books properly. And whether they're going to manage the books or whether someone else is going to do it, I just teach them the importance of them having the ability to know what's going on. Because at the end of the day, it's your business. And so that's pretty much what I do. And I enjoy it very much.
Talk about why did you go into the area of helping them manage their books?
So this actually stemmed from my time in corporate America. I worked about 60 to 70-hour weeks while I was in corporate, and I started to reach burnout. And I absolutely love accounting too much to just allow that to happen. So I started doing some research. And then at the same time, the company that I worked for was Paramount Pictures. We were going through a project where we were converting from an old accounting software to a new one. So as the accounting director, I was tasked with making sure that my team were basically, I needed to train them on how to do their jobs in the new system. So going through that process of creating training materials and teaching them how to use the software, I really just fell in love with teaching and training. I mean, that's how it happened. And so I did some research, found out that QuickBooks was, the most popular software out there for small business owners. I got certified in that software. And then I landed my first teaching job as an adjunct instructor at UCLA Extension. And so really it just stemmed from there.
When you talk about entrepreneurs and finances, emerging businesses, a lot of us, we don't understand what's going on financially. And that is the health of your business.
Correct.
What advice would you give someone listening?
So I would just say, step one, anyone can learn how to manage their finances. You don't need an accounting or bookkeeping degree, certification, or background. You really just need some guidance and some knowledge on basic bookkeeping, which is easy to learn. I teach business owners all the time. And then you need to be willing to go into the software, obviously, and practice what you've learned. And so I have multiple coaching sessions. Everyone learns differently. So some folks may only need 1 or 2 sessions with me. Other folks may need more than that. I also have written a book called Mastering QuickBooks 2023. It's actually the 4th edition of that book. And I wrote that book with business owners who have no accounting or bookkeeping background in mind. So that book basically takes you from A to Z of here's the bookkeeping knowledge you need to know, here's the steps you need to take to set everything up properly, Here's what you need to be doing day in and day out. Here's how to prepare for tax season. And so I would just say you've got to start empowering yourself with the knowledge that's out there, whether it's a book or whether it's meeting with someone like me. But really, that's what I would recommend.
If someone's interested in purchasing the book, how can they purchase your book?
So the book is available on Amazon. And so they can just go to Amazon and purchase the book. It's called Mastering QuickBooks 2023. So make sure you get that one. That's the latest one. But that's the fourth edition. So I have books going all the way back to 2020. What's wonderful is the first three were Amazon bestsellers. This one just came out a couple months ago, so I'm anticipating that it will be as well.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What is something that we don't know about our finances as a small business that we should know?
Something that you don't know that you should know. So what I see a lot of times, and this is typically with business owners that have been in business for just a year or two, and even some businesses have been in business for 5 years, a lot of people commingle their personal and their business finances. And that is just, I absolutely do not recommend that at all. And I understand why you start out that way. I started out that way, right? Many people are like, my business isn't making money. I'm funding my business from my 9 to 5. I did the same thing. So people think, what's the point, right, of splitting it out? And so the issue with keeping it together is you never really know how your business is doing on its own because you continue to have your personal funds mixed with it. So you should definitely set up a separate checking account and a separate savings account for your business. If you're still funding it with your personal account, that's fine, but you have to physically write a check to yourself and deposit it in the business account or make the transfer to the business account and label it owner investment. And you should do this because you want to keep track of how much money you've invested in your business, because hopefully one day it can pay you back.
That is a great strategy.
Mhm.
Crystalynn, there are so many brands and businesses that are dominating. Talk about a brand or a business that's dominating that you admire and why.
So I would have to say one of the businesses or the platforms that I use quite a bit is called Zoom. I'm sure many people have heard of it. I love Zoom, and I know it kind of took off after the pandemic hit, but I was using Zoom before that. And what I would say about a platform like that, whether it's Zoom or Google Meet is another one that's great. What I love about those platforms is I'm no longer limited to clients locally. I have clients now all over the country because I can meet with them like you and I are meeting right now, and they can be anywhere. So that is just like one of the things that has really helped to grow my business just exponentially, is being able to step out of my local city or state and go beyond those borders to meet with clients.
I want you to have a monologue. I want you to name this person, living or not, and this person has inspired you so much. Who is that person, and what are you saying to that person?
Oh my goodness. Okay, might have to pull out some tissues for this one, Dr. Francis. I'm going to say it's my mom. My mom has always been she was my first hero, right? She was a single parent with 4 kids. I was the oldest, and she really did a terrific job of instilling great values and a great work ethic. My mom has passed on, so she has gone on to glory, but I miss her every day. But she really, one of the things that sticks out for me is my mom was an IRS agent. And so during tax season, she would always take us to the office with her. She would always go in on Saturdays, and she would take us with her. And so just in watching my mom do that, or going to a library and watching her help taxpayers prepare their tax return, I really just learned the value of hard work and enjoying what you do, right? And so I know that I got that from her, because there's no way I could have made it working 60 to 70-hour work weeks in corporate had I not had her as an example. So my mom's definitely, without a doubt, my number one hero.
And our sincere sympathy for the loss of your mom.
Thank
Say her
you.
name.
Mary Ann Moore.
Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Talk about exiting from corporate America, the story behind that, Crystalynn, and how did you
Yeah.
prepare?
Mhm. So one of the things I did, I mentioned to you that I was reaching burnout. And so I started doing, I got certified in QuickBooks while I was still working for a corporate. And I actually started to build up a clientele. And so I know you're probably asking, when did you have time to do that? It was really, after hours. So after I was done with my work during the weekday, I met with clients. And then my weekends, especially my Saturdays, I would dedicate to meeting with clients. And at the time, it was great because small business owners, weekends work great for them because they're working on their business during the week. And so I built up my clientele on the side. And it also helped me to stay in corporate because I was making enough money where I could invest in my business, right? I could afford the expenses that I had to be able to build up a business. So it started out as a side hustle, which is like most people's businesses. But then I, put a circle around the calendar when I made the decision it was time to fully moved to my business full time, and that was January of 2010.
Congratulations. So
Thank you.
you self-funded your business?
I did. Yes.
And to date, have you used any other outside capital, or you bootstrap completely?
Bootstrap completely. I mean, and that's not to say that I haven't applied for a grant. Um, I had probably a small, so let me go back. I did have like a small line of credit, but I mean, it was like not that much, maybe $1,000. And that was in the beginning. I did have that, but other than that, it was pretty much bootstrap.
Would you recommend that for others?
I would, just because you don't have a lot of debt. If you're like, go out and you get a business loan, you don't have that. It really just depends on the type of business, right? So my particular business, which is a consulting business, the overhead's really low, right? I didn't need to go out and get an office space. I don't have to have a warehouse for products. So I would say it really depends on the type of business that you're starting. For me, I was able to bootstrap it because the startup costs were low. And I understood that I needed to keep my overhead low, which is I could have gone out and gotten an office, which would have had utilities and all this, but I didn't. I pretty much worked out of my home office, and I went to my clients' offices to meet with them if I needed to meet them in person.
Talk about your top two influencers or mentors, and what lesson did they teach you?
My top two influencers. Wow. Um, that's a good question. So one of them might be surprising. I had this, I guess, period in my, career where my mom was a Mary Kay consultant. And so, of course, if you have any experience with that, she asked me to be on her team. Of course, it's my mom. I'm not going to say no. So I joined her team, even though I was one of those people that never wore makeup. I said, okay, mom, I'll do it, and I'll just use the skincare products. Well, long story short, I started to go to the weekly meetings, and I even went to a couple of the conventions in Dallas. And what I loved about the company was just the philosophy that Mary Kay used to start the business, which was basically her philosophy was to do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. And so, for example, as a consultant of hers, when you're selling the products, the split is 50-50. And you just don't see that. But because her background was sales and she used to work for companies who took the majority of the commission and just gave her a small piece of the pie, she learned that she realized she didn't want to do that when she decided to start her own business. So one of the principles I learned is just to treat others like you would want to be treated, even though you might be the boss, right? And so to me, that's just a valuable lesson that I even used in corporate when I moved up the ladder to start managing my own team, right? Learning how to treat people and realizing that you can't manage everyone the same. So I would just say that was a terrific principle that I carry to this day. Another person who I really love is Madam C.J. Walker. Her story is just like amazing to me. I mean, the first Black woman who became a millionaire. I've read her story, I've watched the movies. Her story really resonated with me in terms of how she started out. And so for me, she's just very inspirational.
Advice you wish you had followed.
Advice I wish I had followed or hadn't?
Yes, had
I had
followed.
followed. So one of the mistakes that I made when I first started out in 2010 is I worked too much in my business and I didn't do the things I needed to do to help grow the business, like go to networking events, make key contacts so that I could continue to grow my clientele. So I relied heavily on my existing clients and their referrals, which was terrific. But the problem was I was working too much on actually doing the work instead of having a support team or hiring someone that could actually help me do the work. And so as a result, in 2013, I ended up going back into the corporate world because, the referrals eventually dried up and I hadn't done anything to keep them coming in or to grow my business. So I would say that the advice that I wish I'd had back then was you can't go it alone and survive. It's just not going to happen.
Talk about vetting people to work for you. And I find with emerging businesses, that's a challenge
Hmm.
because you're undercapitalized, but you need
Hmm.
help. How do you
Right.
balance both of those?
Yeah. So what I started doing, is I started reaching out to colleges. And now that I'm back home, my alma mater is just, 15 minutes away from me. I reached out to them and found out that they have a program for local small business employers. And so it's fantastic. It's free. And you can come up to the school and participate in career fairs. And so I have access to quite a few accounting or interns, I should say, within the College of Business as a result of joining that program. So reaching out to local colleges, I think is a terrific strategy because interns typically, while they do enjoy paid internships, they are more focused on the knowledge and what you can teach them, right? Because that is something that they can take with them. They can build their resume based on the work that they do for you, and they get college credit depending on the programs. So I say that's an excellent source that has really helped me quite a bit. And I love giving back. I mean, I love helping to teach the next generation of accountants. So I have two accounting interns right now, and I love them because they just sort of eat up everything that you tell them, and they're so motivated and excited to be doing, kind of like the real work, right? Because they get the book stuff every day in the classroom, but to be able to apply it, it just really solidifies that they want to definitely stay in this field and go ahead and move on towards their degree in this field. So,
Thank you for that.
mhm.
I want you to we want to talk about an attitude of gratitude. And I
Okay.
want you to have what I call a thank fest.
That's
And, and I want you to thank people and situations that has impacted your life. Have at it.
wow. So, oh my goodness. I mean, first and foremost, if it wasn't for God, I wouldn't be sitting here. So he is like number one in my life. So I thank God every day for giving me another opportunity to make him proud. I would say, I think my first corporate job, I don't want to name names, but my first corporate job, I experienced just an unbelievable amount of racism at that place. But it pushed me to get out, and I landed another role, or the role at Paramount Pictures was just an exponentially terrific opportunity for me. So being in a place like Paramount Pictures in Los Angeles, California, helped me to, I learned a lot about the field of accounting. I started as a financial analyst, and when I left there, I was executive director of that department. I had a boss, his name was Jonathan, who took me under his wing, and he taught me everything. And so I am just grateful to him and to that company because they promoted me based on my hard work. I didn't have to worry about the color of my skin or being a woman. It was just like, okay, she's doing the work, then let's, promote her. And so I felt like I got paid what I was worth. And I just had probably the most support I ever had in a corporate environment was at that place for sure. So I would say I'm grateful to that as well. Um, yeah, I would say
Thank you
we'll
for
leave it
that.
there. Mhm.
Crystalynn, what is your biggest takeaway from our conversation today? What do you want our audience to leave with or to take away from this conversation?
I want entrepreneurs and business owners to realize that um, while I know you started your business because you're passionate about something, it's important that you also realize that getting familiar with your numbers and knowing what your numbers are is really paramount to you to the success of your business. And so I just implore you to meet with someone like me, or you know, reach out to maybe someone locally that you know, and just sit down with someone to go over your books. If you're not managing your books, you've got someone else doing it, and that person's not necessarily someone who you feel comfortable doing that with, I'd reach out to someone else and have them review your books and go over your reports and things with you. I think that business owners just don't understand the power that's in looking at those financials and how they impact the decisions that you would make about your business, whether it's offering services or no longer offering services because they're not selling, or offering products or not offering them because they're not selling any longer. So I just cannot stress enough the importance of knowing what your numbers are.
And that's the key. Numbers, they don't lie.
They do not. That's why I love them.
1 plus 1 will always equal 2. No matter if they have AI, technology, it is going to always remain the same.
Exactly.
Thank you, Crystalynn, for being so authentic in your conversation. And you talked about how you had these ebb and flows in entrepreneurship, and you had to, you did the day quit and you went back. And so
Mhm.
that's the reality of building a business, not for all of us, but
Right.
for a lot of us. That is the real story. Talk about that aha moment, that story when you knew you were going to be successful.
Wow. So I would go back to my junior year in high school, believe it or not. I took a bookkeeping class as an elective, and it was taught by a gentleman who had his own CPA practice. And so he was teaching at the high school part-time. Well, by the end of that class, I knew I was going to be a CPA. I actually wanted to follow in his footsteps. I made the decision as a junior in high school to be where I am right now. It wasn't like a smooth path, but I made the decision back then. He just really had an impact on me. And believe it or not, prior to taking that bookkeeping class, math was my worst subject. I was terrible at math. I had A's in every other subject, but my algebra, my geometry, and all those classes, it was like nothing but B's. But when I got to that class and I started doing the bookkeeping work, I realized that it was simple math, right? It was addition and subtraction, and it wasn't, calculus type math. So I fell in love with it. And even, what I'll say today, it's even easier than it was back then because accounting software does all of the heavy lifting for you. And so it's way easier now than it was back then. And that's why I try to implore on people, you don't have to have the prior experience. You just need to be shown what to do. And then you need to be shown, or you need to be told why you're doing what you're doing, the importance of it. And I think that's kind of the miss sometimes is you have great teachers and trainers out there, but they're too busy showing people the mechanics of where to click and not zeroing in on this is why this is important. And so for me, that's what I bring to the table whenever I'm meeting with a client. Or if you pick up my book, you're going to find that it's going to be a common theme throughout the book. I'm not just going to tell you the what, I'm going to tell you the why.
Tell the audience and again the name of the book.
It's called Mastering QuickBooks 2023.
And the gentleman that inspired you to become a CPA, that is so profound that you knew that as a junior in high school. Say his name, and is he aware how much he inspired you?
Actually, I do not recall his name.
That's
He is
okay.
not aware at all.
Okay.
I wish I knew his name because I would thank him.
That is
Absolutely.
awesome. That is awesome. And just what that story is saying is we're seeing and we're hearing stories about kids having a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
Just that mentorship
Mhm.
or those stories that others share can really inspire a young mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Yeah. Because I had no idea at the time. I had made that decision, but I didn't know at the time that I was actually going to follow through with it until, I did.
Right, because someone's hearing your
Yeah.
story and they're thinking, "Oh, it's logical that Crystalynn would become a CPA." Her mom was an IRS agent, but you
Right.
showed us what really solidified that decision for you.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
thank you for
Hmm.
sharing.
Hmm.
I want you to talk about mental wellness and entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I actually had, because I had so much stress while I was in corporate, um, I needed to find a way to sort of relieve that stress. And one of the things that I discovered, I actually joined a gym when I moved to LA because everyone was a member of a gym. So I was like, okay, I must need to join the gym. And I had always been active, but I enjoyed exercise. So it kind of like made sense. Well, what I discovered is my workouts became my stress reliever sessions. And it was just amazing how much better I was able to deal with what was being thrown, to me through the workday, because I had exercise or I was looking forward to my workout later on. And so I would just say it's extremely important. It's extremely important that you take time out for yourself. And when people say exercise or workout, people always think, oh, I have to join a gym. No, you don't. I try to tell people find something that you enjoy doing because then you will look forward to it. So exercise could mean swimming. It could mean riding a bike. It could mean just taking a walk in your neighborhood. But find what something that you enjoy doing and do that. It's just about being active and moving around. And especially for someone like me who sits at a desk all day in front of a computer, I have to move around. It's just not healthy to sit for hours and hours and not do anything.
Absolutely. What
Mhm.
does self-care look like for Crystalynn?
So self-care for me is really doing my best to eat right. I exercise at least 3 times a week, 4 times on a good week. And then I would say just, treating myself to a service where someone else takes care of me, right? So that could be a mani-pedi. That could be going to get a facial, or my favorite, getting a deep tissue massage, right? And it doesn't have to be often, but just every now and then treating myself to something like that. But outside of that, eating right and exercise are the top two things I would say that I do to take care of myself on a regular basis.
What problem exists in the world today that you'd like to solve?
So one of the things that this is all circling back to what I'm doing with small business owners is I feel like a lot of adults have a limiting belief about managing their finances. And of course, this is more prevalent even in our community. Having the right credit to be able to qualify for a loan or a house. And I really think it starts like when we're young, right? I want to develop a program that actually is part of the curriculum for K through 12, where we um, help kids to become confident in managing finances. It's going to be a reality at some point in your life. So why not start um, while the kids are young and are really able to grasp the concept, and it's just going to carry over into their adult life, whether they decide to start their own business or just want to be good at managing their own personal finances and budgeting. So for me, I'd love to solve the financial literacy, to me, crisis is a big one that I would love to be a part of solving.
To a younger you, what advice would you give to a younger Crystalynn?
So the advice I would give is, wow, to learn how to deal with stress and difficult situations early on. I mean, and what I mean by that is I had to go through a health crisis really to help me realize that working myself, into the ground and not taking care of myself was not serving myself, and it wasn't serving, the people that I love. So I would just say the number one thing I would tell my younger self is take care of yourself mentally and physically. Because if you don't do that, it's kind of like the what I've heard this said before is health is wealth. There's so much truth in that. It's like if you're not healthy, you're not feeling well, you can't get up and go to work if you have a job, and you can't get up and run your business the way you need to. You can't really do anything if you don't have your health. And so I would just say that's probably the number one thing that I would share with my younger self is to keep my health and well-being, focused at the top of my priority list.
What do you need that you don't have to move the needle forward in your business?
Ooh. So I do have right now a marketing assistant and two accounting interns. So I would say that what I need is someone to help me develop a strategy to break into the educational world, if you will, because one of my goals is to create a course that is, whether it's taught by a live teacher or whether it's self-paced. But I want to develop that for the K through 12, school age. And so I would need someone who can actually help me outline a strategy to do that, because I know that that's something that is going to require skill set beyond what I have.
Absolutely. What do you dream about often that you would like to do that you have not done?
So on my bucket list is taking a trip to Italy. I've always wanted to go to Italy. And so that is a trip that's on my bucket list. I plan to do that. And I love to travel. And so we usually take a vacation. My husband and I, once a year, we go somewhere, and Italy would be probably the ultimate vacation for me. So I dream about going there. I dream about, eating the pizza and the pasta and the fresh bread and having me a good espresso.
Talk about marriage and managing a business.
Marriage and managing a business. So what's interesting is my husband, Charles, he's extremely supportive of my business, and he's always been supportive of anything that I do. So what's great about him is that he and I actually had a business that we worked in together, and it was an ice cream shop that we had, and it was very successful. So he and I basically both agreed that we want to be entrepreneurs, just 100%, not working for someone else. And so that's because we have that same goal. It's been pretty easy for us to, manage our personal life with business, because that's just something that we've always talked about, even before we got married. And so you encounter new challenges when you're working together in a business, right? And you learn, kind of like a marriage, that, okay, those are your strengths. You do that. This is my strength. I'll do this, so you don't step on each other's toes, right? It's kind of the same with a marriage. So I think they go hand in hand. I mean, I'm not saying we haven't had our challenges, because I can't get into working too much and not playing enough. But for the most part, it's been something that we've worked through, and I think we've, it's just making sure that you're always prioritizing what's important, and making sure you're on the same page about the goals.
Speaking of play, How did you play today, or how will you play today?
Oh, wow. So, I mean, when you say play, what does that mean? Like play in terms of what I got accomplished, or you mean like something fun?
How do you define play? However, you define play is how I
Mhm.
want you to answer the question.
So I would say, I mean, for me, play is doing something that doesn't have to do with work or business necessarily. So one of my favorite things to do is sit out on my patio in my backyard and either read a book or listen to some music and just enjoy being outdoors. I'm a big outdoors person, and our neighborhood is very peaceful and for the most part quiet. So I love sitting on my patio, taking in the fresh air and listening to some good music or reading a good book. That's what I call play. Good play.
Thank you for that.
Mhm.
What brings you joy?
What brings me joy? Well, you have some good questions, Dr. Francis. I mean, I actually relish in little things. And so for me, being able to do something like just sit and relax on my back patio, it brings me joy. Having a good cup of coffee brings me joy. I'm real simple, so it doesn't have to be anything extravagant at all. I enjoy spending time with my family, with events that we have birthdays and going to my nephew's basketball games. Those things bring me joy as well.
And what breaks your heart?
Oh, goodness. Just turning on the news and watching the senseless deaths that are occurring right now from the guns. The whole gun issue in this country is out of control. And so for me, seeing a whole family wiped out because they just went next door and asked the neighbor to keep it down, or a young lady turning in the wrong driveway, I am just appalled at how there's just no more compassion. People don't have compassion or understanding anymore. So it just breaks my heart when I see those types of things happening.
Crystalynn, if you lost everything and you had to rebuild in 30 days, what industry and why and how?
Ooh. Wow. So if I had to do it all over again, I love accounting, first and foremost. Love it, love it, love it. But I must say that if I had to do it over again, I would actually build a skating rink. I would own a skating rink. And the reason why is because that was, aside from babysitting, which I did at like age 10, when I was 12, I got a job at a skating rink. So it was kind of like my first real job out of the house, and I loved it. I worked at the concession stand, then I moved up to the ticket booth where they allowed me to take the money. Then I moved up to assistant manager. So I loved it because I worked 5, 6 hour shifts, and then I put on my skates and I played. So I lived at that place. And so I just have a love for skating. It's been several years since I put on a pair of skates, but I would open up a skating rink. I would have programs geared for kids and for adults, and it would just be a fun time. That would be like just the best. I think that I would just always enjoy every single day of owning that type of business.
If you conducted this interview, what is the one question you would have asked yourself? I want you to ask the question and answer it.
Okay. I would say, so if I had to ask myself anything, it would be why am I an entrepreneur? And so my answer would be the reason why I'm an entrepreneur is because I love my freedom. And what I mean by that is if you're an employee, regardless of how high up the ladder I went in corporate, I always had a quote unquote boss. And so I completely understand that a good leader has to know how to come under authority before you can be in authority. I get that. But for me, if I have a choice between being an employee and an entrepreneur, I'm going to choose an entrepreneur every time. I'm a natural born leader. I love being the decision maker, and I like learning from my decisions. Sometimes I don't always make the right decision. And so for me, a great example of just confirmation of why I love being my own boss is a few weeks ago, my nephew got married, and my husband and I had to fly to Chicago for the wedding. And so instead of having to put in a vacation request or figure out, oh, how many days can I afford to take off? What do I have on the book? I got to make the call that was said, hey, how many days do you want to take off for this? And it is just so much freedom in that. It just really is. I was talking to my baby brother who also has his own business. And at the wedding, we were literally talking about how nice it was to just take the time off to spend with our nephew. And we didn't have to worry about rushing back to the office because someone was expecting us or putting a request in that could be denied for vacation. So for me, it all comes back to freedom. And being an entrepreneur is hard. Yes, it is. And I wear a lot more hats than I want to at times. But for me, it's totally worth it.
Speaking of decisions, what is the best decision you've made as a leader?
The best decision I've made, I would say hiring someone to do my marketing. I mean, I tried to do it on my own. I didn't enjoy it. And at the end of the day, I didn't do a very good job of it, right? It's just, it wasn't my thing. And so I've just come to realize that it's important to hire people that for these other areas, right, that I'm not necessarily an expert in. I participate, meaning I make sure everything that goes out is authentically represents my brand and me, but I don't have to actually do the thing. And so for me, making a decision or realizing that, that's what I needed to do for certain areas like marketing, it's just really been just terrific for me.
We've come to the part of our interview. It's called Rapid Round of Fun. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'd like you to give me very quick answers. If there's
Okay.
something you desire not to answer, feel free to say pass. Are you ready for the rapid round of fun?
I'm ready.
Your ideal car.
Range Rover.
What is your favorite comfort food?
Ooh, macaroni and cheese.
The last movie you saw?
Creed 3.
You relax doing what?
Reading a book, listening to music.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
My favorite male singer, Michael Jackson. Female, Whitney Houston.
Your favorite dance song?
Any song that I can do the electric slide to. I love doing the electric slide. So any song that allows me to do that.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
I allow myself Chick-fil-A once a week. I could actually go every day, but I go once a week. I love that place.
Work out or hit the couch?
Workout.
Thank you so much, Crystalynn, for joining us on Black Entrepreneur Experience Podcast. Before we let you go, share with our audience the best way for them to connect with you and do business with you. And feel free to leave all your social media handles and let us know the name of the book and where we can purchase it.
Yes. So the name of the book again is Mastering QuickBooks 2023. It is available for purchase on Amazon. You can reach me. I actually have a couple of gifts for your audience today, Dr. Francis. So they can go to crystallynshelton.com/podcast. And there are 2 checklists there that are ideal for business owners. If you are considering purchasing QuickBooks, I've got a checklist called Your First 7 Days in QuickBooks. And I just recently completed a YouTube video series on that as well that you can download. And then the other checklist is a checklist that helps you put together everything that you need to do to close your books before you file your taxes. And so they can grab that checklist as well. When they sign up for one of those checklists, they'll be added to my newsletter, which comes out every Sunday. And so I give a lot of great tips and ideas and just share best practices on all types of areas of your business, not just the numbers for that as well. And so any questions you guys have, or if you want to set up a 30-minute complimentary consultation, you can also do it from that webpage, crystallynshelton.com/podcast. Thank you so much for having me on your show today, Dr. Francis. It was so much fun. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Crystalynn. That's a wrap.